I watched my son spread 5 passports across the kitchen table. One for him. One for his wife. 2 for my grandchildren. They laughed about their dream vacation to Hawaii. Then I quietly asked, "Where's mine?" My daughter-in-law didn't even look up. She smiled and said, "You're not coming, Margaret. We can't spend our vacation babysitting an old woman." At that moment, I had no idea that before their plane even landed, everything they believed about me was about to change forever. The moment I realized my family had erased me wasn't when they booked the vacation. It wasn't when they started buying swimsuits. It wasn't even when I overheard my daughter-in-law talking about first-class upgrades. No. It was the moment she lined up 5 passports across my kitchen island, looked me straight in the eye, smiled like nothing was wrong, and said, "Margaret, you won't be needing yours." For a second, I honestly thought she was joking. I even laughed. "Oh, that's funny," I said. "Now where did I put my passport?" She didn't laugh back. Instead, she zipped up one of the suitcases and said in the calmest voice imaginable, "You're not coming." The room went completely silent. My son, David, stood by the refrigerator pretending to check his phone. My 2 grandkids, Ethan and Lily, were too busy arguing about who got the window seat on the plane to notice what had just happened. I looked at David. Surely he'd say something. Surely he'd tell his wife she'd gone too far. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Mom." That one word told me everything. "We've been talking about it," he continued quietly. "We just think, this trip would be easier if you stayed home." Easier. Funny how one word can break your heart. I stared at the 5 passports. David's. Jessica's. Ethan's. Lily's. And the empty space where mine should have been. Jessica folded another shirt and shrugged. "Come on, Margaret. Hawaii isn't exactly designed for seniors. We'll be hiking, snorkeling, taking helicopter tours. We'd just spend the whole vacation worrying about you." I wanted to remind her that only 2 months earlier I'd walked 5 miles during a charity event. I wanted to remind her that I still drove myself everywhere. Instead, I just nodded. "Oh." That was all I managed to say. Just, "Oh." My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 72 years old. I spent 38 years teaching 3rd grade in Columbus, Ohio. I buried my husband 12 years ago after 43 wonderful years of marriage. Since then, I've lived with my son and his family. Not because I had nowhere else to go. Because they asked me to. "Mom," David had said back then, "the kids need their grandma." Jessica hugged me and promised, "We're family. You'll never be alone." Back then, I believed her. Living together worked well at first. I cooked dinner 3 nights a week. I packed the kids' lunches. I picked them up after school whenever David or Jessica had to work late. Every birthday cake. Every Thanksgiving turkey. Every Christmas morning breakfast. That was me. I never kept score because that's what families do. You help each other. Or at least, I thought you did. The Hawaii trip had been Ethan's idea. He'd seen a documentary in science class about volcanoes. "Dad. We have to go." David laughed. Jessica immediately opened her laptop. Within an hour they were comparing resorts. Within a week the flights were booked. Every night after dinner they'd talk about beaches, sunsets, and luau's. I smiled through every conversation. Not once did it occur to me that I wasn't included. Why would it? We lived under the same roof. We were family. Or so I believed. The morning before their flight, the house looked like a department store after Black Friday. Suitcases everywhere. Beach towels. Flip-flops. Sun hats. Chargers. Snacks. Jessica walked around with a clipboard checking everything off. Then she announced, "Everybody grab your passport." David reached into the kitchen drawer. Jessica pulled hers from her purse. The kids waved theirs proudly. I stood up from the table. I'll grab mine from my bedroom. Jessica didn't even look up. No need. I smiled, confused. What do you mean? She finally looked at me. We decided you're staying here. Those words hit harder than I can describe. I honestly thought I'd misheard her. Excuse me? David sighed. Mom, please don't make this harder. Harder? Harder for who? I looked at my son. The little boy I had stayed awake with during every fever. The teenager I worked 2 extra jobs to put through college. The man whose wedding I paid for after his father passed away. He couldn't even look me in the eyes. Jessica crossed her arms. We need a real vacation. I frowned. What does that have to do with me? She smiled politely. Because someone always has to slow down for you. Those words cut deeper than any knife. Ethan suddenly looked up. Wait. He looked from his mother to me. Grandma isn't coming? Jessica forced a cheerful smile. No, sweetheart. But she promised we'd build a sandcastle together. I know, honey. Lily ran over and hugged my waist. But Grandma always comes with us. Jessica gently pulled her away. This trip is different. I could feel tears burning behind my eyes. I refused to let them fall. Not in front of Jessica. Never in front of Jessica. So I smiled. The kind of smile people wear when their heart is breaking. It's okay, I whispered. You all have fun. David finally looked at me. You sure? I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why he wasn't fighting for me. Instead, I lied. I'll be just fine. An hour later, I stood in the driveway waving goodbye. The SUV disappeared around the corner. The house became painfully quiet. I walked back inside. 5 coffee mugs still sat on the kitchen counter. One tiny fingerprint remained on the window where Lily had waved goodbye. And lying beside the fruit bowl was my passport. Exactly where I'd left it. Untouched. And used. As if I no longer existed, the house had never felt this quiet. For years, I'd complained about the noise. Ethan playing video games with the volume turned all the way up. Lily singing Disney songs while brushing her hair. Jessica yelling, "Who's leaving dirty dishes in the sink?" David laughing at football games every Sunday. Now, I'd give anything to hear that noise again. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the untouched coffee mug I'd poured for David that morning. It was still half full. Cold. Just like my heart. I picked it up, poured it down the sink, and whispered to myself. Pull yourself together, Margaret. You're 72 years old. You've survived worse than this. Or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. That evening, I made dinner out of habit. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Green beans. Enough food for 6 people. When I carried everything to the dining room, I stopped in my tracks. 6 chairs. Only 1 person. I slowly returned 5 plates to the cabinet. Then I sat alone at the table. The silence was almost unbearable. I took 1 bite. Then another. Before I knew it, tears were falling into my mashed potatoes. Not because I wasn't invited to Hawaii. Because I suddenly realized I wasn't missed. Around 8 that night, my phone buzzed. It was a family group text. Jessica had sent pictures from the beach. David had his arm around her. Ethan was holding a surfboard almost taller than he was. Lily wore a flower necklace and smiled from ear to ear. The caption read, "Best family vacation ever. Best family." I stared at those 3 words until they blurred. Apparently, their definition of family no longer included me. I started typing a reply. Looks beautiful. Have fun. Then I erased it. Typed again. Finally, I simply pressed the little heart emoji. That was all I could manage. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. Old habits die hard. I made coffee and sat on the back porch where my late husband, Frank, used to drink his every morning. There was an empty chair beside me. I smiled through my tears. You would have hated this, I whispered. Frank never let anyone make me feel invisible. Not once in 43 years. Whenever someone interrupted me, he'd say, "Hold on. Margaret wasn't finished." Whenever I doubted myself, he'd remind me. You spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Let somebody take care of you for once. I missed him every single day. But never more than that morning. Around noon, my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Ramirez, knocked on the door. I baked too many blueberry muffins, she said with a grin. Then she looked past me. Where's everybody? They're in Hawaii. Oh. She smiled. How wonderful. And you stayed behind to enjoy some peace and quiet? For a split second, I thought about telling her the truth. Instead, I forced a smile. Something like that. She handed me the basket. You know, Margaret, sometimes people don't realize what they have until it's gone. I laughed softly. I hope you're right. She squeezed my hand before leaving. Little did either of us know. Those words were about to come true. Later that afternoon, I decided to clean the attic. Frank always said, if you're sad, keep your hands busy. So I climbed the old wooden stairs with a flashlight. Dust floated through the air like tiny stars. There were boxes everywhere. Old Christmas ornaments. Baby clothes. School drawings David had made in second grade. I opened one faded cardboard box and found something that stopped me cold. A stack of letters. Every birthday card I'd ever received from David. The first one was written in crooked crayons. I love you, Mommy. You're my hero. I smiled through fresh tears. What happened to that little boy? Where did he go? Downstairs. My phone buzzed again. Another photo. This time Jessica had posted a picture from a helicopter tour. The caption made my stomach turn. Living our best life. Living our best life. Without me. I quietly turned my phone off. The following morning, 3 days after they had left, a white government envelope appeared in my mailbox. It wasn't junk mail. It wasn't a bill. It had my full legal name printed across the front. Margaret N. Collins. Return address. Harrison and Cole Attorneys at Law. I frowned. I didn't know any lawyers. My hands trembled as I carried the envelope inside. Something about it felt different. Important. Life-changing. I sat at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and carefully slid my finger beneath the seal. I had absolutely no idea that the next 5 minutes would change not only my life, but my son's life. Forever. My hand shook as I carefully opened the envelope. Inside were several official documents and a handwritten note clipped to the front. It read, Mrs. Margaret Collins. We have been trying to reach you regarding the estate of your late husband, Frank Collins. Please contact our office immediately. This matter is time-sensitive. I frowned. Frank had passed away 12 years ago. His estate had been settled long ago. Or so I thought. I grabbed my reading glasses and continued. The next page nearly slipped from my hands. There had been an investment. One Frank had made nearly 30 years earlier with an old business partner. The company had recently been sold. The value of Frank's share had grown to $4.8 million. I read the number again. Then again. Surely I was misunderstanding. Me? A retired schoolteacher who still clipped grocery coupons? A millionaire? My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I immediately called the number listed at the bottom of the letter. A calm voice answered. "Good afternoon, Harrison and Cole Law Offices." My name is Margaret Collins," I stammered. "I just received a letter." The receptionist paused. "Oh, Mrs. Collins. Mr. Harrison has been hoping you'd call. Can you come into the office this afternoon?" Yes. "We'll be expecting you." An hour later, I walked into a beautiful downtown office building. Everything felt unreal. Mr. Harrison greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Collins, first, let me say how sorry I am for the delay. We've spent months trying to locate you." He explained that Frank's former business partner had passed away the previous year. When the company was finally sold, every shareholder had to be found. Frank had quietly kept his investment separate from the family's finances. Even I had never known about it. Mr. Harrison smiled. "Your husband left very detailed instructions." He handed me another envelope. Written across the front, in Frank's familiar handwriting, were the words, "For my Maggie." My eyes instantly filled with tears. I hadn't seen his handwriting in years. I opened the letter carefully. "My dearest Maggie. If you're reading this, then life has surprised you once again. Knowing you, you're probably insisting there must be some mistake. There isn't. If this investment ever became valuable, I wanted every penny to belong to you. Not because you need the money, but because you've spent your whole life giving everything away. You gave your time, your dreams, your sleep, your patience, your love. You deserve something that belongs only to you. Promise me one thing. Don't let guilt decide what you do with it. Choose people who choose you. Love. Frank." I couldn't stop crying. Even 12 years after his death, Frank was still protecting me. Mr. Harrison handed me a box of tissues. "Your husband clearly loved you very much." He did. And judging by that letter, he knew exactly what kind of person you were. After leaving the office, I drove aimlessly through Columbus. Not because I didn't know where to go. Because I needed time to think. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about everyone else. I was thinking about me. That evening my phone buzzed. A video call. "Jessica." I almost didn't answer. When I did, bright Hawaiian sunshine filled the screen. Jessica smiled. "Hey, Margaret. Everything okay back home?" For the first time. She sounded interested. I smiled politely. "Everything's fine." David leaned into the camera. "House hasn't flooded, has it?" he joked. I chuckled softly. "No." Lily suddenly grabbed the phone. "Grandma. I miss you." "I miss you too, sweetheart." Then Ethan shouted. "Grandma. Guess what? Dad says next year maybe we'll go to Alaska." Jessica quickly changed the subject. "We'll call you tomorrow." The screen went black. Not one of them asked how I was really doing. Not one. I looked at Frank's letter resting on the coffee table. His final words echoed in my heart. Choose people who choose you. For the first time, I wondered if I'd been choosing the wrong people for years. The next morning, Mr. Harrison called. "The funds will be transferred to your account tomorrow." I thanked him and hung up. Just then, my phone rang again. It was David. His voice sounded unusually nervous. "Mom, can we talk when we get home?" I stared out the window. Somehow, he already knew. And deep down, I had a feeling this conversation was going to change our family forever. David and Jessica came home 2 days earlier than planned. Their expensive suitcases still had airline tags hanging from the handles when they knocked on my bedroom door. I was sitting by the window, reading Frank's letter for what felt like the 100th time. "Mom?" David called softly. "Come in." He stepped inside first. Jessica followed, unusually quiet. For the first time in years, she didn't seem to have an answer for everything. David took a deep breath. We need to talk. I closed the letter and folded my hands in my lap. I'm listening. He sat across from me but couldn't meet my eyes. We know about Dad's investment. I wasn't surprised. Mr. Harrison had warned me the sale of the company had made local news, and several former shareholders' families had been contacted. Jessica spoke next. We're happy for you. The words sounded rehearsed. I simply nodded. Thank you. Silence filled the room. Finally David whispered, Mom. I'm sorry. I looked at him carefully. What exactly are you sorry for? His eyes filled with tears. For letting you feel like you weren't part of this family anymore. Jessica lowered her head. I should never have told you not to come on the trip. It was cruel. I didn't interrupt. For years I had listened. Now it was their turn. David wiped his eyes. You spent your whole life taking care of us, and we took it for granted. I stood up and walked to the bookshelf. From the top shelf, I picked up an old photo album. Inside were pictures from every stage of David's life. His first birthday. His first baseball game. His high school graduation. His wedding day. I placed the album on his lap. I was there for every one of your biggest moments. He nodded, crying openly now. But when I asked where my passport was, his shoulders slumped. I know. You didn't lose me that day, David. I paused. You made me realize I'd already been lost for a long time. Jessica covered her face with her hands. I'm so ashamed. I believed she meant it. Not because of the money. Because for the first time, she understood the pain behind her words. A few minutes later, Ethan and Lily came running upstairs. Grandma. They wrapped their arms around me. Lily looked up with watery eyes. I'm sorry you didn't come with us. I smiled and kissed her forehead. None of this was your fault, sweetheart. Ethan reached into his backpack and handed me a small seashell. I picked the prettiest one on the beach for you. That tiny shell meant more to me than anything money could buy. A week later, I met with Mr. Harrison again. I updated my estate plan. A large portion of the inheritance would create college funds for Ethan and Lily. Another portion would establish a scholarship for students who wanted to become teachers, honoring the career I loved. And I donated enough money to help build a community center for senior citizens who had no family to visit them. David looked surprised when I told him. You aren't leaving everything to us? I smiled gently. No. He nodded. I understand. I hope you do. Because this money isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. Months passed. Slowly, our family began to heal. David started calling every week, not because he needed something, but because he genuinely wanted to hear my voice. Jessica invited me to lunch, just the two of us. She apologized again, without excuses. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. But it was rebuilt honestly. The following summer, David planned another vacation. Before anyone packed a suitcase, he walked into my room holding 6 passports. He placed them across the kitchen island. Then he smiled. Mom. He picked up the 6th passport and placed it in my hands. We're not going anywhere without you. I looked at Frank's wedding ring, which I still wore on a chain around my neck. Quietly, I whispered. You were right, Frank. Then I looked at my family. I'm ready. As our plane lifted into the sky, Ethan squeezed my hand. Grandma? Yes? This vacation wouldn't feel like a family vacation without you. I smiled through happy tears. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the chance to remind the people you love that family isn't measured by who gets a seat on the plane. It's measured by who makes sure you'll always have one.